Hello, everyone. Welcome to Time to Come Alive. Once again, I really appreciate you all joining us. My name is Valerie Hope. I'm your coach and your speaker today and your host for this session. And one of the things I'm really committed to in these conversations is that you start to reflect on what you need to become even more conscious about your life. Also, as you become more conscious, that you learn and you find ways to connect with other people in ways that are meaningful and ultimately give you access to create something that you're really passionate about, something that you're really proud of. And I'm always so excited to have new people with whom I can have a conversation that will drive all those 3 points: being more conscious, being more connected, and creative. But before we get started with our conversation, I thought it would be interesting to start off with having a conversation with yourself. We'll take a moment of mindfulness, and I found some affirmations that I thought would be really helpful to start the day with. And these affirmations all have to do with the topic of money or abundance or wealth. And the intention is not necessarily that you feel a certain way as we're going through the affirmations. What I invite you to do is to pay attention to how your mind or your body reacts when you hear the phrases that I'm going to share with you. And if there's any resistance, if there's some excitement, if there's apprehension, whatever comes up for you is great. I would just invite you to pay attention to that, because as we have our conversation with our guest later today, you'll notice maybe some of those same emotions or same feelings coming up throughout the conversation. Okay, we'll just start off by getting grounded. You're sitting down, make sure that you're seated firmly planted in your chair, in your seat, or if you're standing, to make sure that you're in a place that's safe or stable. Just take a couple of deep cleansing breaths. You might choose to close your eyes or soften your gaze so that you can pay closer attention to your internal reaction. And I invite you to let go of any expectations about how to feel, but really just focus internally. I am worthy of a wealthy life. Money comes to me in miraculous ways. I am deserving of abundance in my life. I am open to receiving wealth in many ways. I love my positive, happy, abundant life. The more I give, the more I receive. The more I receive, the more I give. Lastly, life is abundant and I am safe. I invite you to take a couple of deep cleansing breaths again. To energize and charge those thoughts, those reflections. And you may open or refocus your gaze. Okay. You might want to jot down for yourself or track someplace if any thoughts or resistance, or you found yourself in gratitude, or you found yourself in some sort of fear-based thought. Just something to explore, and pay attention as we have our conversation with our esteemed guest today to see if any of those things come back up for you. I am really excited to introduce you to someone that I think I had the fortune of meeting just a few months ago I want to say, Catherine, that you and I connected back in November of 2018. So it's not been very long. And when I first saw you was actually on a different podcast with my buddy Teresa Snyder. And I remember the questions she was asking and the comments you were making around money. I was really taken by how free and how intentional you sounded in the conversation about money, where I've known and I've met and I've experienced myself many conversations that just didn't feel that empowering. And anyway, so much so that after the podcast, I actually went to your website and I looked through and see, like, who is this lady? Why is she talking about this way? And reached out. I did your quiz and I had an opportunity to set up a time to chat with you. And I remember in the beginning of the conversation, I did feel a little bit stilted, like I was playing my cards close to the vest, which I think we all tend to when it comes to talking about money. Yeah. And as the conversation went on, I just found myself feeling more and more open, more and more generous with the information I was giving you. And I was so excited about that conversation that I thought, okay, this is a special person. We need to bring her on. And since I've learned more about you and your story, I thought, okay, this is the kind of person that would absolutely, if nothing else, you guys, it will revolutionize something about your feeling or your ideas or thoughts about how you interact with money or how you look at money. So, Catherine, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you and your community. This is beautiful. I love what you created.
Good. I'm excited to have you accept my invitation. Catherine, I want to start off by just giving people a sense of who you are. So when you and I first spoke, obviously, I called you an entrepreneur, but you're so much more than an entrepreneur. Of everything that you're doing in your life at this point in time, what are some of the roles that you hold that are most notable to you and you're most proud of that you could share with us?
I'm a mom. I'm a mom of twins. That's probably my most challenging challenge. My twins are teenagers. They're 14. So stereo twins is, fun. And, gosh, that's, love you too, buddy. My kids are off to school at 7 o'clock here in the morning. There's so many. So yes, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I'm an investor. I'm a Girl Scout leader. I'm a community leader. I'm a mentor. I'm a coach. I used to be a wife. Unfortunately, now I'm a widow. Dealing with that. My husband passed away recently, unexpectedly. A friend, a sister, a butt kicker.
Heard about that part.
Anybody who knows me knows pretty well that if you're coming to me looking for advice or coaching or anything, you better be prepared. I will hold you accountable with love, but I will tell you the truth. And if you're not ready for it, it's interesting.
Well, you're obviously spending your time and energy doing a lot of things. And it sounds like everything that you shared have really high value, not only just for you, but for your kids, for the community that you serve. I'm curious about, where did you become interested in really sharing that message, sharing your talents and your gifts? How did that all start?
First grade. So when I can actually remember, there's those moments, there's defining moments in our lives. And I remember, so I was in foster care. I went to 13 different schools. So I was the new kid all the time and hated it. But so there's moments in all of those years that really like solidified or changed the trajectory of, whatever was happening in my life at that time. And I can remember my first grade teacher. I remember she had said, posed a question to the whole class. And the question was, when you grow up, what are you going to be? And as we went around the class, everybody was saying whatever they were going to be. And she came to me. And I remember looking at her, and I just said, I don't know what I'm going to be, but I'm going to make a difference in the world. And she looked at me, and she rolled her eyes and went, and then kept on. And I was so like, oh my God, I got the answer wrong. Like, that was the first, as you know, first, who is she? And I knew at the core of my being, whatever I did, I was going to make a difference. I don't know where that came from. I have no idea. Is it a God thing? I don't know. But that was my first moment of making a choice inside of the trajectory of my life. And as my life went forward, the probable predictable future of growing up in the foster care system and hopping from family to family was not good. And I ended up getting adopted by an extraordinary family when I was 16. And I mean, you hear the nightmares of adopting teenagers and stuff. We adopted our twins. Our twins were adopted when they were babies. But this family that chose to take me in, I mean, I'm clear that they changed the trajectory of my life forever from that day forward. And what I was clear about was that after I graduated high school, I had this ability to look around and just see that just because you're born into a situation or you grow up in a situation doesn't mean that you're stuck there for life. There's actually this whole world out there that if we actually tapped into it and explored, what would happen. And then I learned that human beings use less than 10% of their brain. Mm-hmm. So if we look at that, if we look at numbers, my brain speaks in numbers, by the way. If we look at numbers and we thought, if I could tap into that other 90%, what could we do? What could we create? And so I went on this whole journey of personal development, everything, to try and figure out how to tap into that other 90%. And this whole world opened up inside of that gave me access to create an extraordinary life for my kids and I, my husband when he was here, but for all of us. And we all continue to create, co-create together every day with each other, with my clients, with guests, with whoever, that we get to choose to create an extraordinary life. It's a choice every moment.
I'm curious, when you were in the midst of all that transition, right? You're in the foster care system. What was the conversation in those different schools and those different homes that you're in that helped kind of focus your resolve that you were going to use this other part of your life to create something meaningful? What was happening back then?
There's a non-politically correct answer.
We're open for that.
Politically correct. What I observed was adults making stupid choices that impacted myself and my brothers in negative ways and caused a lot of pain to us, to them. And I remember thinking as a child, wow, we grow up, we get older, and we get stupider. I remember thinking that. And so as a child, I could see that the choices that were being made that I had no control over as a child, but was directly impacted by, it just didn't work. It straight up didn't work. And so I think having that experience of not having any control, so to speak, out of the decisions that adults were making for my life, that impacted me forever. And it was So I grew up like I was never going to get married. I was never going to have kids because all I saw was these grown-ups, these adults, making choices that hurt each other, hurt themselves, and hurt children. And so that's all like I understood that growing up was going to be. So I made the choice like, okay, so if getting married and having kids or getting in a relationship and having kids is what causes this damage, then I'm just not going to do that. Like that was my, little kid brain. Yeah. And as I grew up and did a bunch of personal development work and really got to like, hold on. So there's actual tools that I could learn and gain access to so that I could make better choices and have extraordinary relationships and create an extraordinary life for myself and those around me. All of a sudden it opened up now the possibility of someday getting married and maybe having kids. And of course that's what ended up happening. I met my husband and we had an extraordinary relationship for 19 years. We were married for 17 years. We created several companies. My husband had a dream when we first got married, and we turned his dream into a multi-million-dollar company, which later we sold, and we adopted our twins. And, we've lived in California and Washington, and now we're in Arizona, and we've traveled the world and, just created extraordinary communities and relationships and an extraordinary marriage out of doing the work, the internal work that we needed to do so that we could create the life that we wanted versus the probable, predictable future of the patterns that we were taught as children that weren't necessarily the healthiest.
I totally get that. And I'm sure that I, along with everybody else here, knows that, as an adult, we probably do get, I don't know if stupider would be the word, but we do make some poor choices. I'm curious about what were the poor choices that you saw, especially around the area of money? What were some of the poor choices that you noticed when in your youth? And well, let's start with that. And then I want to talk about what you did, what personal growth that you did to evolve from that.
So one of the choices that I watched over and over again was adults smoking. So, and what I watched, again, my brain just works in numbers. Apparently it always has. I remember like being in the 3rd grade and not having any food on the table. However, there was always money for cigarettes. And then I started calculating, like as kids, we as the children were sent to the store to go buy the cigarettes for the adults. Like the adults wouldn't even get off their butts to go buy their own cigarettes. They sent the kids to the store to do it. And so, of course, having the money and understanding the calculations and then watching every day how much money was going into buying these cigarettes and what that would have actually put food on our table. And I couldn't understand like the logic around that. How is that more important than food on the table for the children? I couldn't understand it.
Wow. So what was it? What was the leap that you took, or what was it that you did in order to not follow those steps? Because a lot of, especially with children, we're so impressionable that we might pick up some of those same ideas or beliefs and then transform them into our own lives. What did you do that not only you obviously questioned it, but what did you do to then take action and move in a different direction? Like, how did that start?
I just remember watching like how miserable the adults were. And I just wanted no part of it. Like that was the first piece. Like I wanted no part of their misery and that they continued to perpetuate and create for themselves. Like I just, no thanks. And I had little glimpses of what love was and what family was. And so by going to friends' houses, I got to experience what a healthy family looked like. I have aunts and uncles that I lived with when I was little who were extraordinary and love them to death. And they showed me what love was and what a healthy family looked like. So it was having the opportunity to step out of that nuclear, whatever you want to call it, and experience different, how different families functioned and how they expressed themselves and took care of each other, and experience love inside of those different homes. And so by having that opportunity of being able to see that arise from different homes and different families and different experiences, that's when I got, okay, so it happens to be this way here, but it doesn't mean it has to be this way. This isn't what every family experiences. So by being in different homes and living with different families, that gave me the ability to like wake up and say, okay, wait a minute, I actually can have this different, because if all these other people can have it different, why couldn't I? And so that the spark that started all of it.
What were some of the examples of that loving family relationship that you crave so much? What stuck with you? What did you see?
I think the earliest one was my Auntie Barb and Uncle Harvey. They, oh my gosh, they're love. Like, ask anybody in our family, my cousins, everybody, they're just love. It's who they are. They're extraordinary. And I just feel very blessed to have them. Like, Auntie Barb is the typical aunt where she pinches your cheeks and squishes you and hugs you and, you know, just completely wraps herself around you. And Uncle Harvey is like the jokester, but it was always like everything was family, from creating big meals to playing games together as a family. It was always very inclusive and very loving and very connected. And I mean, you certainly didn't cross my Auntie Barb, because she would like not take any of it. And she was a foster mom. So Auntie Barb and Uncle Harvey, they were foster parents, and they took in all these kids all the time. And it was like, there was always new kids there, but it was always fun and loving and strict, you know, because you got to have rules inside of having a healthy family. But just the love, even today, you know, like even when we adopted our twins, my aunt flew down to California. I'm from Canada, so she flew from Northern Canada down to California to help us deal with some stuff when the very first year that we actually had them and their older brother. So it was just extraordinary amounts of love. I feel forever grateful for these people.
It's amazing. And I know I can hear also how you've taken all of that love and all of that care and also made that part of who you are with your kids, right? And who you are with the people in your community. I'm curious, and I think about, you know, my family, I have 3 brothers. My parents were both really hardworking, responsible people. There was no cigarette buying in my house. So they were all responsible. And I remember that whenever it came to talking about money for us, it was either some conflict between how it should be spent or how much was spent and why it should be spent, or simply that there was not enough or spending too much. We just didn't talk about it in I thought, a productive way. And I shared with some people that I didn't really have any way of articulating my values around money until probably like 10 years ago. I mean, super recent. And it was like as an adult on my own, already living and working for many years, that I finally had someone confront or rub against, you know, some of my own values, where I realized, oh, I haven't quite articulated this, or I'm not sure how to articulate it. I'm curious about, for you, how do you go about having an empowering conversation around money? You obviously grew up in a situation where there was not enough of it, or there's mismanagement of it, and all the other things in between. So I'm curious, how do you go about having an empowering context and conversation?
Lots of personal development. Just like what you were saying at the beginning, like how you started this call was brilliant. Inside of, like, if we actually check in with ourselves and we see, okay, what is this experience for us? What is the experience physically? What is the experience mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Like, money is just energy. And so, but the reality is, until we actually get responsible and deal with ourselves internally, we're going to continue to perpetuate those like ongoing conversations about money that are disempowering. It's like we have to become, so for me, I had to become self-aware of what the conversation was and how it was actually impacting my experience of money. You know what I mean? But again, it started with me. Like, what's going on here? And then how is it impacting here? So then from there, now I could actually deal with it and address it.
Got it.
So it was a lot of personal development work and getting responsible. Like, I had to get responsible. What's going on here?
Give us an example. When you mentioned you've done a lot of work. So of all the work that you've done, what's something that you did that was particularly impactful?
I got a business coach. And the business coach, hold on.
Yeah, you might need to shut that line there.
Is that better?
And at what point in your life did you find this business coach? At what was the moment that you thought, okay, I need to hire somebody for this?
Yeah. So when it came through, she came through my husband, actually. And so it's all the personal development work. So I did the Sterling Women's Weekend. And when I did it when I was 23 years old, the Sterling Women's Weekend gave me the tools to have successful relationships in every area of my life. And I'm sorry?
What is that? Sterling Women's Weekend?
The Sterling Women's Weekend. It's a brilliant, brilliant program. It's a 3-day weekend where, again, you get all these tools to be able to have successful relationships in every area of your life. From intimate relationships to business to children, every relationship that you have, but the most important relationship is with yourself. And so inside of that, getting the tools that I needed that opened up the door for the possibility for me to maybe get married one day. And that's where I actually met my husband. So I met my husband and he had done the Sterling Men's Weekend. So now we have this common language that we come together and to create this extraordinary relationship. And so one of the things I was clear about inside of choosing the man I wanted to marry was I chose a man that was very much involved in personal development and continuing that road. You know what I mean? So he was very open to continue to explore and to grow, and not like we were broken. That's not it. But it was like the commitment to continue to grow who we are and the capacity and what we were capable of as human beings. And so then we went on and we did, landmark education, and we did all their courses. And then through there, because of the man that I chose, my husband, and him being open and being coachable, like the thing we're both clear about is that we don't know everything and we don't need to know everything, but we just need to have the smartest people on our team that know everything. And so by getting a business coach that knew exactly what steps we needed to take and would kick our butts and hold us accountable to take us to the next level inside of our business, that's where we chose to go. So continuing down that road and having a business coach that really pushed in and had us transform our relationship around numbers and in the world of business, I mean, that's where things became really exciting. And for me, that's where my genius, I believe that everybody has a genius. If it's your genius, it's your job. I'm not marketing, I'm not words, I am numbers, I am spreadsheets. And it was from there that this whole world opened up into realizing and this came from, again, more other work that I did, but numbers just tell stories. And when we can actually tap into those numbers and then rework those numbers so that we can actually see what the numbers are telling us, then we know exactly what to do in order to impact those numbers and to get out in front of them versus be at the impact of them. So let me say like how that works. So most people in business create a budget, right? So you create a budget and then you look at it like once and then and that's about it. Like, how'd that work for you, right? And then you're like, oh, I didn't stay on budget. Okay, that didn't work. But that's how most people function in life and in their business. And so what I do is create what we call cash flow projections. So we can actually see what's going to what's going to happen into the next few weeks. So we know we have to pay our mortgages, rent, utilities, like there's things we know. And so we're able to put those into the future. Now, what are the things we don't know? We don't know how many sales we're actually going to make because we don't have a crystal ball. But if we can actually re-engineer our income producing activity, we actually have a way of not only predicting, but really being in the driver's seat and knowing exactly how much income producing activity we need to do in order to generate this amount of income in week 3, 4, 5 ahead. When you actually know your numbers.
Got it.
To me, that was exciting. Like,
I can see it.
Right?
Just talking about it, I can see it.
Yeah, again, it's like, I don't know. I love that it's like a game. And my best friend and I always joke about this. Like, we love to play games. I grew up playing games. And every single time her and I sit down with a new group of people, play a new game, we'll start playing the game and, figure out the rules and stuff. And as we go, and then about halfway through the game, I'll say, okay, wait a minute, how do you win this game? And they'll say, well, you do this, this, and this. And then I'll look, I'm like, oh, look, I won. Like every single time. And that's like in life too, because I turn all of my businesses into games. So when we can turn our business, it's just a game. Like it's just for fun. And it happens to allow us to pay bills and have extraordinary lives and do all that. But as long as it's fun and it's just a game, like now it's a game worth playing versus like, oh my God, it's Monday morning. I got to go to work. This sucks. Like I'm just not willing to live in a life like that. Right? So if I get to choose what my Monday mornings look like, I love Monday mornings because I get to get back to playing my game again because it's just fun. And so when we know, like, oh, it's just a game, okay, and how do I play the game? What are the rules to the games? All of a sudden now you're like, okay, let's play, game on. And this whole extraordinary life comes out of it, right?
Totally.
So it's like, what's changed? Like, all of us work, I work, we all work. The difference is how I choose to see my work versus how other people choose to see their work. People choose to see their work as work. I choose to see my work as a game. And I have all these scoreboards and all these spreadsheets, and it's totally fun. And we all the teams play, and then these extraordinary results show up out of it.
Cool. Well, last question, and then I'm going to open up to the group that's with us so they can interact with us too. How do you then take that same mentality? So you're talking about games and having fun and really being engaged and numbers being a story, right? Telling a story. How do you take that point of view, that philosophy, and teach your children or teach those young people around us so that they're not making the kind of choices or mistakes that adults have made in your life? What do you do?
Right. So the first thing is we don't give our children allowance, we give them commissions. Commissions are earned. So if you have an allowance is kind of like welfare. It's just given to you. You breathe and you get it. Like, not how life works. Not how an empowered life works.
All right, give an example of what would be considered a commission earning activity.
Yep. So my kids are 14. I have a bunch of Airbnbs. And so they're at the age where they want to start getting jobs or whatever. And inside of choosing not to give them everything that they want, you know, they're wanting machines from the time, you know, they pop into this world. And we always say it's good to want, you know, that is good. And what are you going to do about it? And so we have them actually earn their commissions so that they could pay for, you know, whatever. So my daughter happens to help clean our Airbnbs, and my son helps do all the landscaping for all of our Airbnbs. So there's particular chores inside of the house because we're a family that they don't get paid for because it's part of being a family. Like, you know, your laundry, the dishes, things like, you're not going to get paid for that. That's just a courtesy of being a part of the family. This is what we do.
Courtesy.
Well, it is.
Oh, I get that.
And there's extra things, like they could go wash the vehicles for extra commissions. So it's all the commissions are based on how well of a job they did, and did they do it with a happy heart.
Oh, say more about that.
So, and we've taught our kids since the time they were little, like their job is to, whatever they're asked to do it all the way, right away, with a happy heart. Because it teaches them, like, this is the beginning of teaching them good work ethic, having a good heart and a right spirit inside of their motivation for whatever they're doing. So if they do it all the way, like the job completely, versus like be the equivalent of my son taking out the trash but not putting the trash bag back in the can. That's not all the way. Let's go back, put the trash can, you know, the trash bag, new trash bag in there. Now you've done it all the way. Now, have you done it with a happy heart? Or did you grumble the whole time? Because if you grumbled, you're not getting paid for it. Like, I think that's a huge problem inside of our workforce is people have been trained to grumble and hate their jobs versus just do it with a happy heart. You said yes to this job. You said yes to this business. Do it with a happy heart. Like, why not? Who is it going to hurt? Right? And so then there's all the way, right away, the right away. So that's another one. It's like when you're asked to do something, and this actually comes from the Bible. So, you know, Jonah, so God asked him to go and he was given a mission and he said, no. And he went the other direction. And eventually God got his attention by swallowing him with a whale and like having the whale take him all the way up there and vomit him out and say, no, this is what you're going to do. Like, there's wisdom inside of us just doing something right away. When we are asked to do something and stop procrastinating and just get it done, then the space that it frees up inside of us. Like, I talk to my children about, listen, when you're asked to do something and you procrastinate and it, you know, you've spent all this time, like, you know, 6-8 hours grumbling about the whole thing. You've wasted all this energy where if you had just done it, you'd be done in 15 minutes and then have 6 to 8 hours to play. Like, the energy that we waste inside of procrastinating is ridiculous. Where if we actually just got it done, now we're freed up and we can create whatever it is that we're committed to creating. So that's the all the way, right away, and with a happy heart.
I love that. I don't have kids, but I'm ready to have them just so I could teach them this.
Well, we need to teach adults this.
I really could. Well, speaking of teaching adults, we have others that have joined us this morning. I want to give them an opportunity to weigh in, so to share whatever comments or questions that they might have about the subject so far. So if you're interested in making a comment or asking a question, if you're on the phone, you might want to hit *6 to unmute yourself. Otherwise, you can also raise your hand by hitting *9, or on the computer, you'll see the hand raising icon. So love to hear from some of you. What's opening up for you? What's kind of percolating in your mind as you hear Catherine share some of her insights? Love to hear from Heather. Heather, would you like to share?
Sure. So, Catherine, how do you, hang on.
we lose you, Heather?
Sorry, am I there now?
Yes, you're here.
Hear you?
So how do you distinguish between procrastinating and taking time to have downtime and rest? There's an infinite amount of things to be done, and if we're all doing them right away, how do you determine when it's time to stop and purposefully rest?
That's a brilliant question. So I learned years ago to calendar block. So everything that I have to get done, including me time and taking care of me, is all blocked out in my calendar. And I honor each one of those time that I blocked out for that particular exercise or activity to only do that activity, like going to a dentist appointment or a doctor's appointment. Like when I go to the dentist, I can't multitask. Like all I can do is lay there and wait for them to finish their thing. And so it's the same thing with every single activity that I do. I don't multitask. I just do that particular thing during that particular time. So if something pops into my head, like say I'm out having family time and all of a sudden something pops into my head that I have to get done, then I simply go onto my phone and I find a time when it'll work to actually get that done. And I actually schedule it in my calendar. Now, I've essentially like let go because I know there's a time and a space it's actually going to get done so that I can be 100% present with my family. So then now we move forward and that time happens, all of a sudden it's like, okay, now is the time to handle that thing. And so that I have the freedom and I give myself full permission to handle that thing during that time.
So that must bring into clear relief, like when you have to say no to things and say, I'm not going to do that.
Yep. And I in my calendar, I actually have it blocked off. Like when I sleep, I have it blocked off when dinner time, family time. And it just makes it really, really clear what my priorities are. Mm-hmm. My family is my number one priority. So all that time goes in first and then everything else just fits in around it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
That's a great question.
Thanks, Heather. And I'm following up on what Heather just said. I'm curious, does prosperity and abundance require sacrifice in your world?
Sacrifice. I don't see it as sacrifice. I'm sure some people would. I see it as a choice. You know, it's a choice. Everything's a choice.
Say more about that.
So sacrifice to me means I'm giving up something or I don't know. For me, it's like there's my commitments and what I'm out to accomplish. That becomes the precedent for what I'm going to commit to. So again, given that pretty much everything in my world, I do my best to turn into a game and make it be fun. So nothing really occurs as a sacrifice to me because it's all just a game. So it's just play.
Just play. I get that. There's a sense of lightness and freedom that goes along with thinking of things as games.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Meg, anything that pops in your mind about what Catherine has shared so far?
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking about when my kids were little and I was newly divorced and trying to take care of 3 kids on my own and working 2 or 3 jobs, and I would end up, you know, with no money between paychecks. I'd have to borrow $20 from a friend frequently, and I came to a point where I just said, you know what, I need to stop this. I need to sit back and think about, you know, what this is. And it was at that time that I decided that I was going to turn it over and let spirit handle stuff. And I didn't ever have to borrow $20 anymore. I never got what I call, you know, the wealth that we're talking about, the abundance. And that's that's something that it's come from time to time throughout the years. I'll hit a snag, like when I became disabled and had to quit working. It was like, oh no, I'm faced again with this. I know a gal who says, it's a 4-letter word that ends in CK, and it's called lack, and that's been like a what do you call it? Sorry, my mind doesn't work as well as it used to. Words fall out of my head. But
That's
anyway,
okay.
it's a recurring theme, I guess, that I have to struggle against for it not to be an operative theme in my life, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So to me, it's interesting thinking about whether or not I deserve to have wealth and abundance, because it's not something that I've ever had, although I have been able to, use tools to the point of not feeling a constant struggle some of the time. So it's interesting. If you got it, yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Meg. And it sounds like it's really about challenging those self-limiting beliefs. Right? When you mentioned about lack, taking a look at where that's coming from and why and how it's getting, how it's tripping you up, right? How it's getting in the way of what you're really out to accomplish. Catherine, what would you say about it?
Yeah, so I was going to say, Meg, you bring up a really great point. And same with you, Heather. One of the tools that I've been using for years, for decades, is the book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. He doesn't say do and grow rich, get educated and grow rich. He says think and grow rich. And so there's
I've read that book. Yeah, it's a good book.
So there's Think and Grow Rich for women. Have you read that one?
No.
So it's a newer one that's recently come out, and I actually teach a mastermind with women, and we really dig into the concepts of this book and implement them into our lives. And what I love is all the exercises at the end of each chapter that I've been doing this book for years, and the reason I do it is because every single millionaire, and one of my friends is a billionaire, all of those millionaires, what they all have in common is every single one of them does that book once a year. So I like to say success leaves clues. So if we can re-engineer successful people and their habits and repeat their habits, then something should come from that, is my thinking. And so if one of their habits is to really dig into and study and do the exercises in that book at least once a year, then something's going to shift for me, possibly, maybe, hopefully, up here. And that's exactly what's happened. Every single time I go through and do the book, I'm at a different stage in my life, a different chapter of my life, and all the answers end up being just a little bit different and get me just a little bit closer to where it is that I'm going.
I love how you said that, Catherine, because one of the things you shared with me is, and you're doing this every year for all these years, that you always get something out of it. What's the latest discovery? Because I think you're in the middle of it right now, correct? Or done?
We're almost done. We've got a couple more chapters. It's the latest aha. There's like ahas every single week. Like
what's one that stands out to you?
Who I choose to surround myself with.
Okay, say more.
He he talks about like the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with, and if you take their net worth and you add it all up and then divide it by 5, that's pretty much what your net worth is going to be. So if you want to raise your net worth, well, then shift who you're spending the most time with, because when you spend time with those people, I promise you, like, your thinking will shift and expand to a whole new level that you never imagined possible.
how are you shifting that now? Like, well, how do you go about shifting your neighborhood or your network?
So for me, given that my husband just recently died, it's figuring out how, like, what it is that I'm going to create for my children and I now that I'm a widow and having to do it all, all by myself, not having him, my partner, there, my best friend with me the entire time. And, what does that look like for my kids and I? Because that wasn't a part of our dream boards. That wasn't a part of our vision. So it's thrown me a curveball inside of really having to surround myself with extraordinary women that have created extraordinary lives for them and their kids without, their husband right there. Mm-hmm. And that's a challenge because it flipped my whole world upside down.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about the kind of the focus that you have to have, and I've spoken to you a few times about this ever since you lost your husband, and now having to create something different and something new. What are the criteria is the word that comes to mind right now, but when you think about who you're going to allow into your life now to create this next chapter, right? The kind of people you want to surround yourself with. It sounds like you're really mindful about that. What are you looking for? Or what should one look for to know that this is the right thing for their heart, the right thing for the next level?
So for me as a woman, I look for different qualities in women that I want to eventually completely embrace or embody that I feel like I haven't quite embodied. Mm-hmm. So there's not going to be one woman that has everything, but different women have different qualities and different aspects that I, want to eventually grow up and be like.
Okay, got it. Cool. Heather, any other questions, or Meg, any other questions for Catherine before we begin to wrap up here? Awesome. Well, one of the things that I've really committed to, Catherine, is that you also have an opportunity to share with people. They want to continue this conversation with you. Where could they find you? How do they get involved in your mastermind, for example, or have a conversation about their business that might make a difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's multiple things that I do. I'm a partner in a hedge fund as well. So my time is taken up with that. I own a bunch of Airbnbs, but I teach a course called The Numbers Don't Lie. Do the numbers, numbers tell you what to do. And so you had actually talked about the quiz, and anybody can go to it. It's www.numberstellyouwhattodo.com. It's kind of long, but and it's a fun little quiz that has you understand more about where you are with your numbers and to be able to take your numbers to the next level. And that's for entrepreneurs, business owners that have the ability to generate revenue, so to speak, do income producing activities. And we actually break it down so that they know exactly what they need to do. And it gives the ability to get out in front of their numbers all the time so that they can create and start building their net worth. And so that's a lot of fun for me. And then for all women, on Facebook, I've got a group called Mastermind for Extraordinary Women. And so you just, type in that little Mastermind for Extraordinary Women, it'll pop up, and then you just ask to join the group. And we go through and dig into particular books that are going to really take us to the next level. And so we create accountability partners. We have weekly calls and homework, again, to help take us to the next level. And again, once a year, we do the Think and Grow Rich for Women, because success leaves clues. And ladies, that's one of the books that leaves a lot of clues.
It really does. Yeah. I haven't read the one for women, but I did read the one by Napoleon Hill, the original.
You'd love the one for women.
I would. Okay. Well, I bought it and I haven't read it yet.
Well, if you're like me,
Clues.
I'm so busy that the only way I listen to, like, I listen on Audible, audible.com. It's like, that's the only way I can get through all these books. I love, love, love to read, but with my very limited time. So I turn all my driving time into Automobile University.
Okay.
So I love commuting because I get to listen and soak up all these extraordinary books.
I love that. Maybe you have another business idea there, the automotive university. University. And I'm curious, you mentioned this quiz that you have for people who are entrepreneurs or business owners. What resources or recommendations do you have for people who are not, that do not have their own business or are working for another organization?
So I would say one of the couple of the books that really do a great job explaining like what you can do to move from employee onto entrepreneur, business owner, investor, that really impacted my life is, the first one is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And then his second one that I highly recommend is the Cash Flow Quadrant. And so the first one talks about like what you were taught as a kid, which is pretty cool. And then the second one teaches you how to shift from what you were taught as a kid to be, get a good education, get a good job, they'll take care of you, which we all know that's not true, to shifting over to being a business owner and investor and what needs to happen in order to make that happen. And then if you have a brilliant idea or something you want to do, my other favorite is the E-Myth. So the E-Myth talks about different, what you need to do if you're going to actually start a business. There's lots of businesses to start. And so one of the things that I love is I love the concept of network marketing companies. I don't happen to be in any of them. That's not my thing. I'm more blaze my own trail. But for women that are looking, or anybody that's looking to generate more revenue, one of the things I love about really great network marketing companies is that they teach you entrepreneurial skills. It gives you some additional income. It gives you some ability to have tax write-offs that you otherwise wouldn't have, which another series of the book, the Rich Dad series, is Tax Loopholes for the Rich. Read that. That'll give you some great ideas of what you can do for business so that you can be doing things to generate more revenue and have more tax write-offs in this fabulous country. So the network marketing companies. So if you're going to really look for a network marketing company to give you that ability to have that entrepreneurial experience, but within the safety of it, one of the things you want to look for is you want to interview the leadership of that particular line or downline, whatever you want to call it, and find out what systems and structures they have in place so that you can continue to grow your business without being part of the NFL club, the no friends left. Because the last thing we want is to be bugging our friends and family to be buying this. That's not building a true business. So there are companies out there that will teach you how to go and get legitimate customers and really be of service, and they are an amazing support system for each other. So I've seen that happen, and it's been amazing. And then, of course, the revenue that's generated. So when people come to me with these opportunities, I always ask a couple of questions. I say, I want to talk to 3 people that are doing this right now and that have commas in their bank accounts because of it. So if they can't actually have 3 people who are doing it right now that have had real world results, commas in their bank account, then it's not probably a legit thing to do. Because inside of those conversations, that's when I can find out what kind of support and training and ongoing nurturing that happens to have us grow into being these really great, entrepreneurs and eventually businesses in other areas. I've done a lot of network marketing companies. Robert Kiyosaki talks about it too. again, it's just a brilliant training ground that gives you this safe space to be an entrepreneur, to get that training, to shift your mindset, to take it to the next level and potentially create your own company, you know, in the world. My husband and I created our own companies, several of them, and now I'm a partner in a real estate investment hedge fund. And all of that came from getting myself educated through different opportunities that eventually was like a stepping stone to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So I was always growing. So it was never traditional education.
And sometimes that's not always the way for our minds to really engage in things that we're doing. It sounds like what you've done, Catherine, is really create a spark for yourself and those around you to take on a lot of different actions. And I love what you talked about it's not about do and grow rich, it's about think. And I think if nothing else, what I've gotten from your conversation today is just how much you really honor the brain capacity that you have and the potential that your brain has to create more, better, bigger, and how disciplined you are about looking at your thinking first to determine what actions you should take. That's one of the things that I'm taking away from our conversation. I want to thank you so much, Catherine, for being a part of our conversation today. And for those of you that were able to join us today, and I'm really excited about any conversation that open up for you personally, for yourself, or that those conversations that you'll start to have in your community or with your family or your kids about getting commission versus allowance, for example. And I encourage you all to go to the Facebook page, connecttojoy.com, and Connect to Joy, and comment about this talk. I'll post it there in the next couple of days. We have an opportunity to watch it and share it, and make sure that we start these conversations. We really just want to make a difference in the quality of life that you lead and find a way to come alive around money. Fabulous. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Have an extraordinary day, ladies.